I want to talk about equality, diversity, and inclusion. There's lots of people who at least had or have thought that it just sounds like a lovely thing. Why would we not be kind of supporting equality, diversity, and inclusion in our institutions, in our workplaces, everywhere we go?
Well, as with all mantras of the progressive left, they sound wonderful. Who could possibly be against equality? Who would want to tinker with the Equality Act 2010? Who would want to tinker with the Human Rights Act 1998? What are you against equality? You against human rights, etc. So critics like me always start, as it were, on the back foot. But yes, I think EDI, DIE, DEI have inflicted terrible damage on social cohesion, on institutional resilience, on the West. Why? Because each of those letters represents almost the perfect opposite of what, in fact, is implemented under that ideological dogma, and it is a dogma. Let's take equality first. Of course, people believe, well, actually, I'm not sure quite what secular justification there is to believe in human dignity at all, let alone the belief that human worth does not come in degrees. I, as a Christian, have no problem recognizing that we all bear the image of God, and that is a binary property. You either got it or you don't. What qualifies you to have that? Being a human being. Whether you've got Down syndrome, whether you're a fetus, whether you are in receiving palliative care, etc., etc. Whether your IQ is low, whether your IQ is high. It's just not an issue. It suddenly becomes an issue with secular modernity. I think as we lose the metaphysical basis for making sense of equal human worth, we start to reach not for qualitative notions like Imago Dei, but for quantitative notions. How much money has that person got? How much money has that person got? Not the same. Equality is sameness. We see this in the feminist debates. The second wave feminism, what is it for a woman to be equal to men? To be the same as men. That's a fundamental confusion, I think. Equality is not sameness. But it has to be sameness in the quantitative sense in secular world, because there isn't any metaphysical underpinning that you're allowed to appeal to in public, because we have to privatize that because we might start the wars of religion again or something. Incredibly confused. We could talk more about that. Diversity, all of the data shows the diversity as it's understood on the progressive left. Not diversity, dialectical diversity, the diversity that is essential to any kind of truth-seeking, the kind of Socratic dialectic of back and forth.
Diversity of thought.
Diversity of thought. I agree. I think this. Why not? No. John Stuart Mill, Chapter 2 on liberty, nails all that. Ethnic diversity, religious diversity, it is not a strength. It is a challenge. Sometimes, we find ourselves surrounded by all sorts of diversities, forms of diversity. It is a challenge. It's not an insuperable challenge, but it's a challenge we have to recognize as a challenge. How do we assimilate people with wildly different outlooks on the world? How do we assimilate people with very different religious impulses? How do we assimilate people with zero religious impulses? Especially within a public square that is the creation of this kind of liberal myth that we can park all those deep commitments, that they're not that important. We can privatize them, we can domesticate them. This is what John Rawls tells us to do in Theory of Justice, 1971. It's bonkers. So we haven't actually got the means to assimilate or integrate. Now, that's a huge problem. It makes diversity a deep, debilitating weakness. And it's not something necessarily to be celebrated. It's just morally neutral. Actually, I think it represents serious policy challenges. We're seeing rising levels of sectarianism in the United Kingdom at the moment. Nobody can deny that, whatever side of the fence one's on. Those are the fruits of diversity. Now, what's the antidote to that? My view is national loyalty. The best thing about shared national loyalty in a kind of common project is that it's an antidote to tribalism. It's an antidote.
It's something above those.
It's something above. Don't know if you've had Catherine Birbal sing on yet, but I mean, she's a dear friend. She runs this incredible school, incredibly diverse ethnically. And she is very clear. She says, in order to make that the best school in the country, which she's done, it is non-negotiable. You have God Save the King at the beginning of every day, Union Jack. It all feels maybe a bit jingoistic and a bit silly, but she says that is the magic. That is the magic antidote that makes every kid in that school a school of 70 languages, goodness knows how many ethnicities, one of the poorest parts of, a very poor part of North London. How is she getting some of the best results in the country? because she recognizes that you need an antidote to diversity. You need to find a unity that is going to deal with the diversity.